Dogs are an important part of our lives, and keeping them protected is a top priority, especially against nasty parasites. That's why you gotta check out NexGard Plus, afoxolaner, moxidectin, and pyrantel chewable tablets. NexGard Plus chews provide one-and-done monthly protection that kills fleas and ticks, prevents heartworm disease. Plus, it treats and controls roundworms and hookworms. That's a whole lot of protection packed into a delicious beef-flavored, soft chew designed to make monthly dosing easy and enjoyable. So the next time you're at the vet, ask about NexGard Plus chews. They're the one-and-done monthly parasite protection you want for your dog. Use with caution in dogs with a history of seizures or neurologic disorders. Dogs should be tested for existing heartworm infection prior to starting a preventive.
Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Shopify is there to help you grow. Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms, and sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What I love about Shopify is how no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., and Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
The all-new season of Futurama is streaming on Hulu.
That's great, but I have to warn you, it's completely brilliant.
The interplanetary hit is back.
The very survival of Earth is at stake. Is everybody okay? Is anybody hurt?
Nobody's okay. Everybody's hurt.
Watch the all-new season of Futurama.
That's the best damn show I ever saw.
New episodes Mondays, streaming only on Hulu.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Nick Stevens. Our co-host Bob Phelan is out this week, but Nick and I have plenty to talk about as the Orioles announce several promotions in the minor leagues. We'll also get into the recent news of the Orioles draft classes. The Orioles signed all 21 players chosen in the 2024 MLB draft, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But first, Orioles on the Verge is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get on a game of blackjack or poker, or unblind as one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today, get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet online, the game starts here. And as we like to do at the top of every episode, we want to welcome a new member to our Patreon community. And for that, I will turn it over to Nick.
Yeah, we have one new patron this week. Love to see it. I just have Greer listed here as the name. So shout out to Greer for joining. They joined at the AA level, which is $5 a month, but they got a nice little discount because they signed up for a full year right off the bat. So shout out to Greer for joining Patreon. And I don't think we've shouted this out or notified of this. We're not the biggest like YouTube portion of the show, but if you are watching live on YouTube now or after the fact, you can also support us by clicking that join button down below. Sign up there. And if you do that and hit us, email us, send us a DM on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, and we can try to hook you up with some of those Patreon discounts there if you support us on YouTube as well.
Absolutely. And as a reminder, you can join our Patreon community as a paying member for as little as $3 a month. And at the $5 and $10 levels, have access to bonus daily coverage from Bob, Nick, and myself. And with that, we'll get into the big story of tonight and maybe the big story of the minor leagues for this week. And that is that we have had several promotions, and it's been a while coming. You go back to when Matthew Etzel was promoted from Aberdeen to Bowie in early June. Etzel, of course, now a prospect of the Rays, but with the Orioles at that time. We haven't really had much in the way of notable promotions since then. So it's been about 2 months since we've been able to talk about moves up the ladder in the minor leagues, and we have a lot tonight. It really started last week with Nestor Herman, a right-handed pitcher, making the leap from Delmarva to Aberdeen and being replaced there by Yeber Cartea, who after a really good run in the FCL was promoted to the Shorebirds. And then on Monday, the Orioles announced several notable promotions, including infielders Aaron Estrada and Anderson De Los Santos, making the jump from Delmarva to Aberdeen, along with left-handed pitcher Jared Beck. T.T. Bowens, meanwhile, the Bowie Bay Sox first baseman, is getting the call up to AAA Norfolk. And perhaps some of the more notable moves, however, come at the lower levels with the guys that are moving up from short season ball to Delmarva. Simon Leandro, a right-handed pitcher, will be going from the FCL to Delmarva, as will infielder Edwin Amparo. And Killer Morphe, a right-handed pitcher who has really burst onto our radar this year, is going from the DSL all the way up to Delmarva. That's right. He is going to bypass the FCL. And then the Shorebirds also land several undrafted free agents to round out their their pitching staff. So we'll get into that on tonight's episode. But Nick, let's just start here. What are your thoughts on some of these moves?
I got a lot of thoughts on some of these guys. I think maybe start with like Nestor Herman. Let's just start by the top. Maybe just run down the order that we've got them in. He missed a chunk of the year due to an injury, and I know he's been pitching really well lately. And a lot of people, I feel like every time we post Nestor Herman highlights, people are like, "Why is this older college kid just dominating in low A?" Because he missed a big chunk of the year due to that injury, and this is his first full year in pro ball. So, but yeah, fantastic numbers. Glad to see him in high A. He also had 2 perfect innings in his first high A stint, so that was fun to see. A 30% K rate, 7% walk rate when he was in Delmarva, a 1.49 ERA, 51% ground ball rate. He throws 97 miles an hour. He's 11th round pick out of Seattle, so that is quite the find for this organization. And he's probably, I don't know where you're going to have him ranked in our top 50 update next week, but I would not be shocked if next week when we update our top 50, he's just outside of our top 30, which is pretty awesome considering he is a 11th round draft pick from a small school. And maybe look at the other 2 guys that went to Aberdeen, like Anderson De Los Santos and Jared Beck. Anderson De Los Santos, I've pounded the table for him for a while just because he's got fantastic batted ball data, right? One of the better end zone whiff rates in the org, hits the ball incredibly hard, but he just hasn't seemed to taken that step forward that I thought he would this year. Kind of assumed like, oh, year 2 in Delmarva with his batted ball data and the information that we know about him, he's going to break out this year. It hasn't come. I mean, even I remember going back to our very first live show and we were talking with a Orioles front office member and they lit up when they were talking about Anderson De Los Santos. And so that kept me interested in De Los Santos, but the numbers just haven't been there yet. So he doesn't turn 21 until this winter. But I'm curious to see like this promotion. Do the Orioles really see something with De Los Santos, or is this we need to make some room for some of the younger guys? We're going to move you up to high A. This is your last chance to like show us anything. We'll see there. Jared Beck, I didn't realize how well Jared Beck had been pitching just because he's 24 years old. He is a 7-foot lefty, so very unique arm in this system, a unique arm in baseball. But there's a lot of moving parts there. So I've always given him the benefit of the doubt. Like this is going to be a project pitcher, but the way he started this season in Delmarva, which this is his 3rd year in Delmarva, he gave up 12 runs in his first 5 innings and he had more walks than strikeouts. And I didn't think he was going to last. But if you look since then, since May 1st, he's running a 2.53 ERA, a 186 average against, a 32% strikeout rate. He is still walking nearly 20% of the batters he faces. That is ugly, but he's improved tremendously over the course of the season. So that is good to see and glad to see him get a promotion. But those 3 guys going up to Aberdeen were certainly intriguing.
Yeah, Herman, I've not finalized my top 50 for the midseason update, but I can tell you that Herman is definitely in the running. I love what he showed at Delmarva. And what's been encouraging is that since he came back from the injury he had earlier this year, the stuff has not diminished. He has pinpoint command most nights. You mentioned he can hit 97. Good ground ball pitcher. Yeah, there might be a reliever profile there. I want to see how he looks when he gets more stretched out in outings, and I don't know if we're going to get a chance to see that this year, but everything that he has shown me when he's been on the mound this year, I've been impressed with. I agree with you about De Los Santos. My expectations for him this season were higher than what he's ultimately delivered on. You can see it on his good nights, what makes him a top 35, possibly top 30 prospect in this organization. He hits the ball really hard. He's got a decent arm over at third base, but he just has not put it all together for some reason. And I do think for the Orioles, you don't want to send him back to Delmarva for a third year if you don't have to. You want to clear room for some of the younger guys. So hopefully he's able to use the last month or so of the season to get acclimated to high A, because my suspicion is that the Orioles want to put him right back there next year and see what he can do, and he's going to have to respond quickly. And as for Beck, that did jump out at me. You know, you look at it, the month of April was really, really bad for him. And then he started to turn a corner. And yeah, like you said, I was kind of surprised that he was able to maintain that. And one of the things that I think is in his favor is that he's a lefty who's not a big splits guy. He's been pretty equal against both sides this year. So as you mentioned, a lot of moving parts with a guy his size. You're going to have delivery issues. That's just inherent to pitchers who are 7 feet tall. But if he can iron out the command, that's going to do him wonders.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why the Orioles clearly like the stuff. That's why they drafted him. It's not just a gimmick in the system. They drafted him for a reason. I'm excited to see what he can do in Aberdeen. And I missed the biggest addition to Aberdeen was Aaron Estrada. I want to talk about him next. We tagged him before the season started as someone who could probably go in that Freddie Ben Cosme path, where he probably doesn't see a ton of time in Delmarva before he gets promoted. He spent the vast majority of the season. There's only like 4 or 5 weeks. I think there's only 5 weeks left, at least for Delmarva and Aberdeen. 5 more series for those 2 teams, and their season's done. But I don't know. These are just, he's a guy who, he's hard to strike out. He doesn't have a lot of, or this whole mold, this new mold of prospect we're seeing, especially on the international side of things for the Orioles. They're hard to strike out. They don't have a lot of power, but they have solid hit tools with great eyes at the plate, good defense, speed guys, maybe profile as like major league utility type players at their peak. But clearly, like, this organization loves Freddie Ben Cosme. And I don't know if there's a single person out there who's met him that doesn't love the kid, but these are guys that the organization clearly love and have a vision for, despite being kind of unique from the typical type of hitting prospect we see in this organization. Estrada's a little bit different because he's had the power this year, and he's got 8 home runs already. He's showing opposite field power. He's still hitting the ball on the ground a lot. It's like 50% ground ball rate, but he is hitting the ball in the air more than he was in the DSL and FCL. That's resulted in more home runs. And as we talked about when Baseball America released that some updated park factor information, he's a switch hitter, but he sees most of his time hitting as a lefty. Hitting in Delmarva for lefties is one of the worst ballparks in all of minor league baseball for lefties, according to Baseball America's park factors. And his home road splits are not that different. He's a better hitter on the road, but he's still a pretty good hitter in Salisbury. He's got 3 of his 8 home runs at home. He's hitting 289. It's been a great season for Estrada, and now he's 19 years old, and he's in high A to start the year. And actually, the splits are just unbelievable. I tweeted out this morning, in the first month of the season, he hit 155 and had a 414 OPS. And I thought, all right, this is a kid who hit really well in the FCL and the DSL. He's got the big hit tool, but what else does he have? He's getting crushed in low A this first month of the year. He completely turned it around, because since then, he has a 158 WRC plus, an 889 OPS. He's hitting 332. He's got 28 stolen bases and a very respectable 15% strikeout rate, 8% walk rates. I kind of think Aaron Estrada is a dude, to be honest.
Completely agree. And I've talked about this on our show before, but I'll bring it up again because I think it's worth repeating. When I kind of knew that Estrada had taken it to a different level at Delmarva was when they had a series down in Carolina. I want to say it was in May. They were playing the Mudcats. Estrada's hitting from the left side and hits a home run off the video board in left center field. And that's an opposite field shot for a guy whose height weight listing suggests that he shouldn't hit for a lot of power. Yet he's got excellent contact skills, and that power will come out from time to time because he has such a good line drive stroke that when he's able to avoid hitting the ball onto the ground, it's going to get some distance because he just hits the ball hard and he can barrel it up really well. So he's putting it all together. I know that there are some questions still about the defense, but given how young he is, I think there's time for that to develop.
Yeah, I love Estrada. I don't know who else. There's some other guys like TT Bowens, kind of run through the rest. TT Bowens, he's been a league average bat this year in AA. The walks are down. He's following this trend we're seeing with a lot of the bats where the walks are down. Strikeouts are also down for him just a tick, but the home runs go up and he's hitting the ball in the air more. That's something we see with a lot of these guys. Again, I have a hard time seeing TT Bowens in the majors, but he was an undrafted free agent out of Central Connecticut. And I remember when right after he signed, looking into him and doing my research on Bowens, I kind of figured this was just like a minor league first base depth signing that somebody's got to play first base for Delmarva. TT Bowens is going to be the guy that they signed to do that. He might hit 200. He's going to hit 15 plus home runs a year down there, but that's pretty much his purpose. He has far outseated that. Obviously, he earned this promotion to Norfolk. This wasn't just because Norfolk's roster's become pretty barren lately and they need somebody to play first base. They've got people to play first base there. He earned this promotion. Good power numbers down there with Bowie. Again, WRC plus just above 100, so just slightly above league average there. He's a good defender. He hits the ball incredibly hard. If he can hit a little bit in Norfolk, I think he's going to be back there next year, and he's a pretty decent depth option. So it was cool to see him. Not the guy from the Bowie movement I think we were all expecting. We were probably expecting to see Enrique Bradfield added to Bowie's roster, maybe see Judd Fabian and or Dylan Beavers promoted to Norfolk. But TT Bowens earned this in his own right. So I'm glad to see him continuing to excel in the system.
Yeah, me too. And although we've never gone back and counted it up the way that we keep threatening to, he has to be the all-time leader in final segment appearances. I have to think going back to 2021 because he's never been in our top 30. I don't think he's ever been in our top 50, but you're crunching the numbers every week. And it's like, oh, TT Bowens hit 3 home runs in the series last week. Let's shout him out here. Yeah, this is absolutely an earned promotion. He's been hitting the ball really well this year. And it's been a good bounce back considering that he lost most of last season to injury. So I wasn't sure how he was going to look coming back from that because he had a little bit of time in the Arizona Fall League. Didn't do a whole lot at the plate there, but settled in as one of Bowie's steadier hitters. And I agree with you. This is absolutely an earned promotion.
For sure. Elsewhere, what do we have? Keeler Morphe. I don't know. I was just shocked. I didn't believe it. I thought it was going to be a mistake. I was like, I saw the transaction log this morning and it said Keeler Morphe assigned from DSL Orioles to Delmarva. And I was like, I don't want to tweet this out or anything or mention this because I feel like this is a mistake. Somebody messed up with all the roster commotion that's happening. I know some of the draft picks got officially assigned to FCL. There's a lot of paperwork movement happening right now. Maybe somebody clicked the wrong name when making the adjustments behind the scenes. But no, this was legit. Steve Molesky tweeted out a couple hours ago. Keeler Morphe makes the jump from the DSL to Delmarva, which I don't recall a DSL prospect skipping the FCL. I don't recall any off the top of my head recently. But Morphe, this is an 18-year-old. He's still only 18 years old. He's listed at 5'8", maybe. He might be lower, smaller than that. This is a tiny guy, but he was pumping 100 miles per hour a couple of weeks ago. Shout out to the DSL Orioles who broadcast their games. Morphe got the start. I tuned in and watched that. And they've got velo, they've got exit velo data, they've got pitch location on those broadcasts there. It's a pretty cool broadcast. You don't see a lot of the actual baseball. It's kind of tough to watch, but I'm just interested in the data. And his data was phenomenal. This kid was pumping 100 miles per hour into the 4th inning of his start, despite his size and being 18 years old. And to see him make this jump, I didn't think we were going to see him again because after that start, and I wrote the article up on Substack on what I saw in that outing, ever since right after that outing, he didn't pitch for like 2 or 3 weeks. And I was like, he got hurt. He's having Tommy John, or there's some injury there. He's out for the rest of the year. Here we go again. But he's come back and he's had 2 really good outings since then. And now he's going to be pitching to Delmarva. I could not believe this, especially with a pitcher of his age making that extreme jump.
Yeah, Morphe only turned 18 in June, which makes this all the more impressive. Signed last year, pitched in the DSL, and other than posting good strikeout numbers, didn't do a whole lot in the DSL last year, but clearly improved this season. And, he's close now to his career high in innings pitched, 22 innings this year compared to 25 and 2/3. So I don't know how much we're going to see him in Delmarva the rest of the way. But what this shows to me is that the Orioles really believe in Morphe. Otherwise, they would be justified shutting him down, letting him tune up for a stint in the FCL next year. But they believe he's ready for this level. They're going to try to get him some exposure there, and hopefully he's on Delmarva's opening day roster next year. And you said it, his size is certainly not impressive, listed at 5'8", 161 pounds, but the stuff plays up really well. And what I've noticed, and I want to know if you agree with this, usually sometimes when you see a pitcher who's that size, who throws that hard, the delivery is a little violent. And you look at it and you think, all right, well, this guy is, possibly setting himself up to get hurt. I don't have that sense with Morphe. And maybe as I watch him more, I'm going to start picking things apart more frequently than I am now. But when I have seen his outings and I've watched the DSL feed as you have, I don't come away with that concern.
No, I don't think so. I think it's a smooth delivery. I don't know. This kid and he didn't get a ton of money either. He's not like a huge signing. I forget how much he signed for, 200,000-300,000 maybe. Might have been even a little lower than that. I just think for the Orioles to make this kind of jump with an 18-year-old pitcher, and like you said, someone who just turned 18 not that long ago, and his numbers last year in the DSL were not good. He walked everybody. This year, though, like it was an extreme turnaround with the strikeouts to walks, and to see him get such a big jump, I think speaks volumes about how this organization views him. Because we'll talk about some undrafted free agents. I don't know if you have any notes on some of these guys we're going to see in Delmarva, but the Orioles signed 10 undrafted free agents, and I believe most of them were pitchers. I don't have the list in front of me. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I feel like only one. There's the shortstop from Arizona or Arizona State. Other than that, I think they were all pitchers. And I think a lot of those guys are just going to help fill innings with Delmarva. Delmarva had to throw a catcher on the mound for 5 innings on Sunday afternoon because they ran out of pitchers. That's where we're at in the season. And so I think they signed a lot of these UDFAs to help fill those void at the end of the year. And we'll see how many stick around next year. But to see them go ahead and make that jump with the DSL kid is just, wow, awesome. I love it.
Yeah, and before we get into the undrafted free agents, I want to talk about Yber Cartea for a moment, because I know that you gave him a pretty nice shout out over on our Twitter recently. And it's not the exact same story as Morphe, because Cartea is older, 21 years old. He's listed at 6'5", 165 pounds. But kind of like Morphe, he's been a guy who has had prior short season experience. And frankly, up until this year, the results had been a little underwhelming. He'd had a really good stint to start out 2023 in the DSL after pitching there in 2022. But then after an early promotion to the FCL, he really struggled there last year. Went back there, repeated the level this year. Excellent strikeout numbers. He gets to move up to Delmarva and makes a strong first impression last week. 3 2/3 innings pitched in a start. Struck out 5, walked 2, gives up just 1 run on 2 hits. You tweeted out some of the velo numbers and some of your thoughts on his pitch mix. What did you see from Cartea in that outing?
I really like this arm. And I think he's a little bit older, but I still think he's pretty raw just because he was holding pretty steady. It was Delmarva broadcast, so their broadcast does a pretty decent job of telling you like what the pitch was. Because first of all, we got a behind a center field camera view for a lot of Delmarva games now. So shout out to Delmarva for giving us that. But the broadcast still does a really good job most of the time of telling you like what the pitch was, what the velo was, so you get an idea of what these guys are throwing. And even into his final inning, he worked into the 4th inning there. he was still holding 94 every time the broadcast read off his 94-mile-an-hour fastball. So he was holding that, which was good to see. Curveball, changeup, slider, according to the broadcast, he was getting whiffs on all those pitches. He hit a couple of guys. I think he hit at least 2 batters. Had the couple walks like you mentioned. So still wild, but man, he's tall. He's 6'5". I think this is a guy who you can work with. And next year, he probably starts in Delmarva's rotation again next year, but I'm pretty jacked to see what the Orioles can do with a full offseason with him now that he's in Delmarva, because I think that first and only start that he's had with Delmarva so far was pretty promising.
And before we move on to the draft class, I do want to acknowledge some of the undrafted free agents. And honestly, there's been so many moves today. There's been some players released, which we were still finding out about as we got ready to come on the air tonight. But, Nick, I wanted to give you a chance. Is there any of the undrafted free agents that stood out to you? I know that there was one pitcher who's now going to Delmarva. You tweeted out a clip of not too long ago showing a very nasty breaking ball.
Yeah, that's a Trent Terzinski. He is from where is he from? Let me pull Valparaiso. That is a very funky delivery. I just want to see it in action. But he is pretty intriguing. He's also 6'6". He's got the super funky delivery. He missed pretty much all of 2022 and 2023 due to Tommy John surgery. I think when you see that delivery, you get it. But he throws, I think since he returned from Tommy John, there's some videos out there of him like in the college lab. That velo is up to like upper 90s, and he's got a massive, it's a beautiful 12-6 breaking ball. I'm pumped to watch this guy. Some other guys as well, the other guys that are going to Delmarva, Joe Galassi was the closer at Illinois last year. So teammates with the 9th round draft pick in this year's draft class, Jake Crowder. Nice to see 2 Illinois guys, 2 teammates join the fray. He had good strikeout walk numbers and then pitched really, really well in the draft league this year. And then Kenny Liner was the other guy that's going to Delmarva. This was an interesting story because I found out that he was a catcher at Western Carolina, converted to a pitcher, didn't pitch in 2024 due to academic reasons. There's a video, he pitched this summer for the Peninsula Pilots in the Coastal Plain League. And there's a video they put out where he admitted, he was like, he messed up academically, so he did not get to play in 2024, but went to the Coastal Plain League and dominated. He's a big guy. He throws incredibly hard, long hair as well. So he's got the flow going. That never hurts. I think Terzinski and Liner specifically, those 2 guys, I'm very intrigued to watch pitch now that they are in Delmarva.
Yeah, with Liner, it's an interesting story. And he pitched in the Coastal Plain League this year. He had a very short stint there last year. But otherwise, he was looking at just a third of an inning with Western Carolina in 2021 or 2023, excuse me, as his only pitching experience before going to the Coastal Plain League last summer, then going back there again this year. So this is a guy who's really raw, but listed at 6'3", 205. I'm intrigued to see what the Orioles can do with him. So in that sense, I'm glad that we're going to have eyes on him here in Delmarva over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. I'm only sad that I hope we get to see Ben Vespi this year. I thought that was pretty cool. That signing Nick Vespi, his little brother, bringing him into the organization. See what he's got. Pitched at Central Florida this past year.
Want to teach your kids financial literacy, but not sure where to start? Greenlight can help. With Greenlight, parents can keep an eye on kids' spending and saving, while kids and teens use a card of their own to build money confidence. As a parent, you can send instant money transfers, set up chores, automate allowance, and more. It's a convenient way to run your household, customized to your family's needs, and the easy way to raise financially smart kids. Get started with Greenlight today and get your first month free at greenlight.com/pod.
If you're a facilities manager at a warehouse and your HVAC system goes down, it can turn up the heat, literally. But don't sweat it, Grainger has you covered. Grainger offers over 1 million industrial-grade products for all your operations, including warehouse HVAC maintenance. And even better, they offer access to experts and fast delivery, so you and your warehouse can both keep your cool. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The all-new season of Futurama is streaming on Hulu.
That's great, but I have to warn you, it's completely brilliant.
The interplanetary hit is back.
The very survival of Earth is at stake. Is everybody okay? Is anybody hurt?
Nobody's okay. Everybody's hurt.
Watch the all-new season of Futurama.
That's the best damn show I ever saw.
New episodes Mondays, streaming only on Hulu.
If you're a facilities manager at a warehouse and your HVAC system goes down, it can turn up the heat, literally. But don't sweat it, Grainger has you covered. Grainger offers over 1 million industrial-grade products for all your operations, including warehouse HVAC maintenance. And even better, they offer access to experts and fast delivery, so you and your warehouse can both keep your cool. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I think he was their Friday night starter. So I think he was the last undrafted free agent that I saw sign. So there's a name that if you're interested in following these guys as they start to trickle up to Delmarva and you're look out for Ben Vespi. Let's see what he's got, if he's anything like his brother.
Absolutely. And with that, now we'll talk about the players that were part of the Orioles draft class. And this year was kind of unique in the sense that the Orioles went 21 for 21, signing all 21 players that they chose in the 2024 draft. And there were some overslot signings. Some of them we expected. We talked about right after the draft how we thought Austin O'Verne out of USC was going to be an overslot sign, and that was the case. But the Orioles, on the day of the deadline, agreed to terms with first-rounder Vance Honeycutt on a deal that was worth about $200,000 more than slot value. 22nd overall pick came as a slot value of $3.8 million. Honeycutt gets $4 million in his signing bonus with the Orioles. And the Orioles were also able to snag several high school prospects who were chosen on day 3 of the draft, including outfielder Nate George, who signed for $455,000. He's a guy that we broke down in a recent mailbag episode, but he comes in to the organization with a lot of loud tools. And Nick, I know that you had a chance to talk about him and some of the other high school picks from that last day, including Andrew Tess and Braylon Whitaker. And at the time, it didn't seem like the Orioles were going to sign all three, but they ultimately did. So now that they're officially in the system, what are your thoughts on these players?
I thought it was pretty phenomenal. First of all, that we saw all 21 picks signed. Not shocked that Vance Honeycutt was overslot. Just, I don't know how much leverage he truly had, like as far as like NIL goes, but he could have returned to UNC, maybe could have improved the draft stock a little bit more if he had another good year like he did this year at UNC. But I feel like he was a sleeper, like 1-1. I mean, this is a guy who was, before the college season started, a lot of people had going very early in round 1. So not shocked to see him go overslot. You mentioned O'Verne. Yeah, sophomore coming off a down year at USC. Figured he was going to be overslot. I was a little surprised that Griff O'Farrell got what he got. I thought he would be a bigger underslot deal. And really, there's only one guy, Jake Crowder, the 9th rounder from Illinois, that got, what did he get? He got $27K from a 189 slot value there. But even the 10th rounder, Christian Rodriguez, who was a senior from Cal State Fullerton, even he got only $30,000 below the slot value. He got $147K. So that was all pretty surprising. And despite that, they were still able to land 4 high schoolers, which is really awesome. I think a lot of people are pretty excited about DJ Layton, the 6th rounder out of Georgia. He seems pretty fun, but Tess seems like a catcher with some pop. I think there were some positive reports coming on him out of the draft. I'm stoked to watch Nate George, the Minnesota high school outfielder. I think this kid's got a lot of impressive tools. That 16th rounder signing for $455K. He wanted to go pro. For whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe just because there's more information about him, to be honest. But George just seems like a guy who, if things start to click for him, he could be an extremely fun draft pick. I still think, even now that we're a couple of weeks away removed from the draft and looking at this thing, outside of the obvious and Vance Honeycutt, who was a first rounder, I still say Nate George is my favorite draft pick just because of the possibilities and his ceiling. Braylon Whitaker, the other high schooler, the 19th rounder out of North Carolina, I got to be convinced about him. There's really no information out there. I don't think the Orioles have really come out and said anything about Whitaker either. I thought he was kind of the fallback option. If we can't get Tess and George, then we've got Whitaker. We've got another high school outfielder, a left-handed hitting outfielder that we can sign. He signed for the max, $150K, the max before they have to dip into the signing bonus pool there. I still need to be convinced about him, but they brought in 21 guys plus 10 undrafted free agents, so 31 new players in the system. And it's not full of like sexy names, but at the same time, I think this is going to be a pretty intriguing class. And I'm excited to see these guys over the next, I imagine we see Honeycutt, O'Farrell, maybe Overn in the next couple of weeks. They're going to close out the year in Delmarva, get those final maybe 2 weeks of the year in Delmarva, and then maybe we see them. I think Aberdeen ends at the same time, so we may not see them trickle up to Aberdeen, but we should get at least 2 weeks of these guys down in Delmarva.
Yeah, that would be good to see. And I don't know how they'll handle him because he is a catcher, but I'd be curious to see if Ethan Anderson joins them there as well. That was the Orioles' third pick in this year's draft out of Virginia. He signed for just a little bit under slot, not by much, though, in the second round. Overall, as I've started to step away from the draft class a little bit, I think I like it even better. I think that Honeycutt has the promise to be someone who turns out to be a steal with the 22nd overall pick. It's not a lock by any means because with players who have questionable hit tools coming into professional baseball, there's a very wide range of outcomes. They could fix it and he emerges as a true 5-tool prospect, or he might settle in as a decent major league role player who maybe has some good years as a starter, but doesn't ultimately stick the way you would want him to because he's only hitting, 210, 220 in some years with a lot of strikeouts. But Honeycutt did make a little bit of progress this year at UNC, so I'm hoping the Orioles are able to build off of that. Was there anyone else in this draft class that stood out to you that maybe we haven't had a chance to talk about in our recaps to this point?
If I was looking at a little bit more, and I think if you're looking ahead to next year, I don't think we see him this year. I was also trying to look at all right, who are we going to see in Delmarva before the year ends? And I think Honeycutt, Griff O'Farrell, who I will say, despite us being, I don't want to say down on Farrell, just not as excited about the O'Farrell pick. I think going back to what he got for that signing bonus, I think does speak volumes about how the organization views him. This wasn't just a pick to save a bunch of money off at the top to go after some of these other high school kids. So I feel more confident in that O'Farrell pick, but we probably see Over and we probably see Anderson. The other two college bats are both catchers. I think it'd be kind of hard to send 3 catchers to Delmarva, especially when they already have a couple of guys who deserve some reps behind the plate as the season wraps up. But looking at these pitchers, I don't think we see, just like last year, a lot of these guys probably just stay in Sarasota. Maybe you see Jack Crowder get some innings in Delmarva. Other than that, maybe Brandon Downer, the 13th round pick from Cal Baptist, maybe Cohen Aiken, the kid from Lindsey Wilson College that I learned was a college after he was selected. He only got $25K. Maybe you see some of those guys, but I'm becoming more and more intrigued with Carson Dorsey, the left-handed pitcher from Florida State. And maybe it's because they traded Baumeister. And so they replaced Baumeister with his former teammate there in Dorsey. But I think this is a guy that's, we're not going to see him this year, but is he going to be in Aberdeen's rotation on opening day next year? I don't know. I feel like this is a lefty, bit of a project pitcher, but I feel like this is a guy who, with the right tweaks, could be one of the, I don't want to say like the Michael Ferret of this draft class if you're comparing it to last draft class, but I think he's going to be a guy we're talking a lot about next year.
Absolutely. Dorsey was a guy that I highlighted on our day 2 recap. I'm really intrigued to see what he does. And it would also continue a trend we've seen in the Orioles finding some success with guys that had been in junior college at some point, because he had been in junior college before transferring to Florida State. So that's one to keep an eye on. I'm intrigued by, as I start to learn a little bit more about him, Isaiah Salinas, who was chosen out of Cali County Community College in Kansas. Left-hander, 6'1", 180. Seems like he's projectable. Solid delivery. Want to see what he looks like when he gets on the mound, but very intrigued by that pick. And I agree with you about DJ Layton. I believe that Layton, although we probably won't see him this year, could be a guy that really shoots up the ranks next year when he gets that first taste, probably in the FCL.
And Chase also, I think Chase also, not like if you look at MLB.com's, he wasn't on their ranking. He is a guy who you got to dig deep on some of these national outlets and their ranking, their pre-draft ranking list. But the Orioles took him in the 4th round. They gave him just over $500,000 signing bonus. I think the organization's pretty high on Alsop, and I would not be shocked if he is like the opening day starter for Aberdeen next year. He's like next year's Zach Fruit, the guy who just kind of comes out of nowhere. Nobody's really talking about him, even though Fruit was a much later round pick. Alsop's a 4th round pick, but I feel like this guy is the highest drafted pitcher in this draft class, so he's got to get some attention. But I just feel like that attention hasn't been there since the draft. But I feel like the Orioles are pretty enamored with this arm with the right tweaks. He throws, I think he touched 100 miles per hour last year for Auburn. I wouldn't be shocked if they work with him pretty hard all offseason. And he's at least in Aberdeen. If he's not the opening day starter, he's in Aberdeen's rotation next year. And this is a guy who he makes that first start, and we're like, oh, he just threw 4 shutout innings with like 5 strikeouts. Okay, now we're intrigued. I could honestly see that with Chase also next year.
Absolutely. And with that, we'll move into our final segment. Like, we actually have not done this in a few weeks because of the trade deadline and the draft, the minors kind of having an irregular schedule with more off days built in around the draft. So this is probably the first time in a month or so we've done this. But as we like to do at the end of every episode, we're going to shout out a player outside the top 30 portion of our top 50 list for something they've done recently, whether it's been a good game, a good week, or maybe there's just something interesting in their stat line that we want to point out. I will start off with Nick, who has a prospect that fits the top, outside the top 30 portion of our top 50 requirement for this segment.
I'm going Tavian Josenberger. Yeah, he's top 50 guy for us, but not in our top 30. I just want to get his name out there whenever I can because I felt like he really did deserve a shout out this week for what he did last week's performance. He had 438 in 6 games last week with Aberdeen. He had a pair of doubles, perfect 6 for 6 in stolen base attempts, 4 walks, and the most fun stat, he only struck out 1 time in 16 at bats. He's up to 42 stolen bases on the year. I know Enrique Bradfield Jr. and his 55 stolen bases gets a lot of the attention, but Aberdeen, I think as a team, has the most stolen bases in all of minor league baseball, and Josenberger is a big part of that. He also has the 3rd lowest swinging strike rate in the South Atlantic League at 6.1%, which is a pretty low number. And one of the 2 guys ahead of him on that list is actually Enrique Bradfield, who has a 4.9% swinging strike rate. But yeah, if I knew his Josenberger's exit velo numbers, I'd feel more confident about this take. But I see a lot of signs that point to a real potential breakout for this player next year. I do wish I knew exactly how hard he was hitting the ball, because then I feel more confident in that. But everything else seems to be pointing in the right direction for Josenberger, even though like the batting average and a lot of the baseball card stats aren't impressive. I don't care right now. It's his first full year. He's in Aberdeen. He's improving as the year has gone on. And for my pitcher, I'm going down to the DSL. Esteban Mejia. This is a right-hander. When he signed this year, so he's a 2024 international signee, the Orioles tweeted out their like scouting report and video on a couple of the guys that they like to highlight from each class. And in that video, they said this kid at 16 years old was already throwing 100 miles per hour. He just turned 17 in March. And last week, he threw 4 shutout innings, actually 4 no-hit shutout innings. He had 7 strikeouts. He's now pitched 21 innings on the year in the DSL. He's got 35 strikeouts to 11 walks. He's only 17. He's reportedly touching 100 miles per hour and showing much better control. Normally, we see all these guys. So many guys down in the DSL that the Orioles sign throw 100 miles per hour, but they can't find the strike zone to save their life. Mejia is right from the jump. Morphe couldn't find the strike zone last year. He is now. Mejia is already finding the strike zone. So that's why I'm keeping a very close eye on Esteban Mejia down there in the DSL.
Those were both good choices, and I agree with you about Josenberger. I've liked Josenberger for a while because although the hit tool, when you look at the baseball card stats, is questionable, he just does a lot of things well. His strike zone judgment is excellent. As you mentioned, he rarely swings and misses at strikes. He can move around the field. He's got very impressive speed. But yeah, I agree with you. If I knew a little bit more about the exit velo, I would definitely pinpoint him as a guy who could be a breakout candidate at Double-A next year. And I'll move on now to my players for this week. And my hitter, although much younger, I think fits a little bit of Josenberger's story. And that's Simone Newell. Newell, a young infielder, 17 years old, signed out of Jamaica as part of the Orioles' 2024 international free agent class. Had a good game on Saturday against Red Sox Red as he went 3 for 4 at the plate with a home run that was followed by a grade 80 bat flip. If you have not seen that yet, either go pull up the game on YouTube or head over to our Twitter. We have the clip posted right there. And Newell, if you looked only at the batting average, you'd see a guy that's hitting 246 this year. Nothing else really jumps out at you, but then you start to dig a little bit deeper. This guy must walk every single game. 19.5% walk rate, 405 on base percentage in 38 games this season to go along as a 125 WRC plus, despite not hitting for a ton of power, getting on base a lot. And while the strikeouts at 25.5% are a little bit higher than the types of players that Nick was talking about earlier, where you see these young switch hitting infielders who don't strike out a lot, Newell does draw a lot of walks, and it seems like as he fills out, he could start to tap into a little bit more power. So he has certainly caught my eye. And then for the pitcher, I'm going to go with Braxton Bragg at Delmarva, who put together his second straight strong start last week against Myrtle Beach. He went 5 innings and a no decision, giving up just 1 hit, striking out 7, walking in batter. And across his last 2 outings, he now has 10 scoreless innings with 12 strikeouts to 1 walk. Bragg is one of those pitchers at Delmarva that honestly I thought we were going to see promoted to Aberdeen, if not today, then sometime soon, because he's a college pitcher who has been at Delmarva all season, has really good strikeout numbers, 87 strikeouts, 69 2/3 innings pitched against just 19 walks. So if Bragg doesn't get to Aberdeen soon, well, we're running out of season, but I have to think that Bragg would be on the short list of pitchers that if you're going to promote someone from Delmarva to Aberdeen before the year ends, he would be on there because he's 23. He's put together really good numbers at Delmarva this year, and I would love to see what he could do against more advanced competition.
Yeah, and he's definitely ahead of like Blake Money and Riley Cooper among the college arms down there in Delmarva. Back-to-back starts with 5 shutout innings. Like, this is a kid coming out of Dallas Baptist that was known for throwing a lot of strikes, and it looks like he's really found his groove now. I don't know what the velo is at this moment. I think it was like 92, 93 in college. If can get that velo up to like 95 plus, I think he becomes like a 2025 breakout arm. Just be careful if you want to do some extra research on Braxton Bragg, you got to dig through all the Civil War stuff. As a history major, that was a lot of fun. I spent probably an hour the other day learning more about Braxton Bragg, the historical figure, but Braxton Bragg, the pitcher, can hopefully contribute much more to this country than the other Braxton Bragg did. But yeah, I love seeing him find his groove down there in Delmarva and hope he does get to end the year in Aberdeen.
And with that, that does it for this episode. We will be back later this week to take questions from our listeners as part of our latest Major League Mailbag segment. In the meantime, you can catch us on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, and YouTube. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. Nick has had a couple of articles up recently noting prospects like Yubur Cartea and more. So you want to check that out. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to sign up for our Patreon community. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, presented by BetOnline and part of the Believe Podcast Network.
If you're a facilities manager at a warehouse and your HVAC system goes down, it can turn up the heat, literally. But don't sweat it. Grainger has you covered. Grainger offers over 1 million industrial-grade products for all your operations, including warehouse HVAC maintenance. And even better, they offer access to experts and fast delivery, so you and your warehouse can both keep your cool. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey parents, Greenlight is here to take one big thing off your to-do list, teaching your kids about money. With a Greenlight debit card and money app of their own, kids and teens learn to earn, save, and invest. You can send money instantly, set flexible controls, and get real-time notifications of your kids' money activity. Set up chores and put allowance on autopilot to reward them for their hard work. Then, learn about the world of money together. Get 1 month free when you sign up at greenlight.com/podcast.
At Ashley, you'll find colorful furniture that brings your home to life. Ashley makes it easier than ever to express your personal style with an array of looks in fun trending hues to choose from earth tones to vibrant colors to calming blues and greens. Ashley has pieces for every room in the house in the season's most sought-after shades. A more colorful life starts at Ashley. Shop in-store, online today. Ashley, for the love of home.
You know when you're listening to a true crime story that has an unbelievable plot twist that makes you stop in your tracks? That's what our podcast, People Are the Worst, brings you with each episode. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Rebecca. We're identical twins who love true crime cases that make you say, didn't see that coming, and we hate the people responsible for them. Listen to People Are the Worst now on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, it's Michelle Beadle. That's right, the Michelle Beadle. You're welcome. You love talking about sports. I love talking about sports. You know the only thing cooler than talking about sports? Sports! And right now, all your favorite sports are on Sirius XM. I'm talking every NFL game, every game from the NBA, NHL, MLB, every NASCAR race, golf major conference college sports, and all the top games in the WNBA. If it gets your heart pumping, it's on Sirius XM. To start your free trial of Sirius XM today, visit SiriusXM.com/believe.